I need to tell you something that most people are not ready to hear. And I understand if your first reaction is to push back, because what I am about to share goes against everything you have been told about eating healthy in your 60s and 70s and beyond. But I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes because this single piece of information could be the difference between walking freely into your 80s and being wheeled into a surgical suite so that I can replace what is left of your knee joint. Every single week, I stand across the operating table and I look down at a knee that has been destroyed. And I do not mean worn down the way you might expect from someone who spent 40 years running marathons or working construction. I mean destroyed in someone who did everything right, someone who walked every morning, someone who took their vitamins, someone who made what they believed were healthy choices at the breakfast table every single day for decades. And when I open that knee and I see the cartilage, or rather what used to be cartilage, I already know what happened. I have seen it so many times now that I can practically predict it. That cartilage did not just wear away from use. It was eaten alive from the inside by chronic low-grade inflammation that started not in the knee but in the gut. And it started at breakfast. Here is what nobody is telling you. Your knee cartilage is not like the brake pads on your car that simply grind down over time from friction. That is the old model. That is the explanation your doctor gave you in 2 minutes while typing into a computer. Oh, it is just wear and tear. It is just your age. No. Your cartilage is a living, breathing tissue. It is constantly breaking itself down and rebuilding itself through a beautifully balanced cycle. When that cycle is in balance, you can walk and bend and kneel and garden for your entire life without ever needing a surgeon like me. But when something disrupts that cycle, when something tips the scales so that destruction outpaces repair, your cartilage begins to dissolve. Not over years, month by month, week by week, meal by meal. And what I have learned after more than 2 decades of practice and after reviewing research from institutions like Harvard Medical School and the Mayo Clinic is that 3 specific breakfast foods, foods that are sitting on millions of kitchen counters right now because people genuinely believe they are making a healthy choice, are among the most aggressive drivers of that destructive cycle. These foods do not just fail to help your joints. They actively accelerate the breakdown of your cartilage through mechanisms that I am going to explain to you in plain language right now. Let me start with a question. What did you eat this morning? If you are like most of my patients who are trying to do the right thing, you probably had something like a bowl of instant oatmeal, maybe the kind with the maple and brown sugar flavor or the apples and cinnamon variety. Maybe you spread some of that heart-healthy plant sterile margarine on a piece of toast. And maybe you washed it all down with a tall glass of orange juice because you have heard your entire life that it is packed with vitamin C and it is good for you. Does that sound about right? If that was your breakfast this morning, I need you to understand something with absolute clarity. You just consumed what I have started calling the cartilage destruction trifecta. 3 foods that work together in your bloodstream to create a perfect storm of inflammation, protein damage, and metabolic disruption that targets your joints with terrifying precision. Let me walk you through each one, and I promise you by the end of this video, you will never look at your breakfast table the same way again. The first food is instant flavored oatmeal, and I can already hear you saying, but doctor, my cardiologist told me oatmeal is heart healthy. And you are right. In a way, plain whole rolled oats are indeed a reasonable food. They contain beta-glucan fiber, which can support healthy cholesterol levels. But that packet of maple brown sugar instant oatmeal that you tear open every morning is a completely different animal. It is an imposter wearing the disguise of a health food. Pick up that packet and look at what is actually in it. A single serving of most popular instant flavored oatmeal brands contains between 12 and 16 grams of added sugar. Some contain even more. That is the equivalent of dropping 4 full teaspoons of pure sugar directly into your breakfast bowl. And here is why that matters, specifically for your knees. When you flood your bloodstream with that much sugar first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, your blood glucose spikes rapidly. And when glucose levels spike, something happens in your body that most people have never heard of. It is called glycation. Glycation is a process where excess sugar molecules in your blood attach themselves to proteins throughout your body. They latch on and they form compounds called advanced glycation end products. In the medical world, we refer to these as AGEs. And that acronym is tragically appropriate because these compounds literally age your tissues from the inside out. Think of it this way. Imagine your cartilage is like a brand new kitchen sponge. It is soft and springy and flexible. It absorbs shock beautifully. Now imagine taking that sponge and leaving it in a bowl of sugar water for weeks. What happens? It becomes stiff. It becomes brittle. It loses its ability to flex and bounce back. Eventually, it starts to crack and crumble. That is exactly what AGEs do to the collagen matrix inside your knee cartilage. A landmark study published through researchers affiliated with Harvard Medical School examined the synovial fluid, that is, the lubricating liquid inside your knee joint, of patients with osteoarthritis compared to healthy controls. They found that the concentration of AGEs in the joints of osteoarthritis patients was dramatically elevated. And here is the part that should stop you in your tracks. The level of AGEs in their joints correlated directly with the level of AGEs in their blood, which correlated directly with their dietary sugar intake. The sugar they were eating was showing up inside their knee joints and destroying the very tissue that kept them walking. But it gets worse. These AGEs do not just stiffen your cartilage directly. They also activate special receptors on cells in your joint lining called RAGEs, which stands for Receptors for Advanced Glycation End Products. When AGEs bind to these receptors, they trigger a cascade of inflammatory chemicals called cytokines. These cytokines are like an alarm bell that never stops ringing. They call in enzymes that actively digest your cartilage. Your body is literally being tricked into eating its own knee joint because of the sugar in your morning oatmeal. So, what should you eat instead? The answer is simple. If you love oatmeal, buy plain steel cut oats or plain whole rolled oats. Cook them yourself. It takes 5 extra minutes. Top them with a handful of blueberries, which are loaded with anthocyanins, a compound shown in research from Tufts University to actively reduce inflammatory markers in joint tissue. Add a tablespoon of ground flaxseed for omega-3 fatty acids. Add a small handful of walnuts for healthy fat and protein. That breakfast looks almost the same in the bowl, but it behaves completely differently in your bloodstream. No sugar spike, no glycation, no AGEs attacking your cartilage. Just slow, steady fuel that actually supports your joints. Now let me move to the second food that is doing tremendous damage, and this one might be the most deceptive of all. It is that plant sterol enriched spread, the margarine substitute that markets itself as the heart-healthy alternative to butter. You know the brands I am talking about. They come in those little tubs with the labels that say things like clinically proven to lower cholesterol and made with plant sterols. And yes, the plant sterols in these products can indeed modestly reduce LDL cholesterol absorption. But what those labels do not tell you is what else is in that tub. Most of these spreads are manufactured using highly refined industrial seed oils, soybean oil, canola oil, sunflower oil. These oils are extraordinarily high in omega-6 fatty acids. Now, your body does need some omega-6. The problem is the ratio. For most of human history, our ancestors consumed omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids in a ratio of roughly 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. The average American diet today has pushed that ratio to somewhere between 15-to-1 and 25-to-1. And that tub of plant sterol spread you put on your toast every morning is one of the most concentrated sources of omega-6 in the modern diet. Why does this matter for your knees? Because omega-6 fatty acids are the raw building blocks your body uses to manufacture inflammatory compounds called prostaglandins and leukotrienes. When your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is wildly out of balance, your body is essentially running an inflammation factory at full capacity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Let me give you an analogy. Think of your knee joint like a door hinge. When that hinge is well oiled, the door swings open and closed smoothly and silently for decades. But imagine replacing that lubricating oil with a substance that slowly corrodes metal. At first, you would not notice anything. The door still works. But over time, a layer of rust begins to form. The hinge starts to creak, The movement becomes stiff and painful. Eventually, the hinge seizes up entirely. That corrosive substance is chronic inflammation driven by excess omega-6 fatty acids, and it is rusting your knee joints from the inside. Research published in the journal Osteoarthritis and Cartilage followed over 2,000 participants and found that those with the highest blood levels of omega-6 inflammatory markers had significantly faster rates of cartilage volume, loss in their knees measured by MRI over a 2-year period. The cartilage was visibly disappearing at an accelerated rate, and the researchers could predict who would lose the most cartilage simply by measuring the inflammatory markers in their blood. So, throw away the margarine tub, I mean it, today. Replace it with real grass-fed butter in reasonable portions, or even better, with half of a ripe avocado mashed onto your toast. Avocado is loaded with oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat that has been shown in multiple studies to actually reduce inflammatory markers in joint tissue. You are replacing a food that rusts your hinges with a food that lubricates them. The swap takes zero extra time, and it could profoundly change the trajectory of your joint health. Now let me reveal the third food, and I want you to pay very close attention because this one catches almost everyone off guard. It is commercial orange juice. And before you argue with me, I want to be very clear. I am not talking about the orange itself. A whole orange eaten with its fiber and its pulp and its cellular structure intact is a perfectly reasonable food. What I am talking about is that tall glass of commercially processed orange juice that has become an almost sacred part of the American breakfast ritual. Here is what happens when oranges are juiced on an industrial scale. The fiber is stripped away, the cellular structure is destroyed. What remains is essentially a glass of fructose dissolved in water with some vitamin C and a nice orange color. A single 8-ounce glass of commercial orange juice contains roughly 21 grams of sugar, almost entirely fructose. That is actually more sugar per ounce than many sodas. But it has a healthy reputation, so people drink it without a second thought, often 12 or 16 ounces at a time. Fructose is processed differently than other sugars. It is metabolized almost exclusively by your liver. And when your liver is hit with a large bolus of fructose first thing in the morning, one of the primary byproducts of that metabolism is uric acid. You may have heard of uric acid in connection with gout, and you would be right. But what most people do not know is that elevated uric acid levels are devastating to knee cartilage, even in people who never develop clinical gout. A major study from the Mayo Clinic examined the relationship between serum uric acid levels and knee osteoarthritis progression. They found that participants with uric acid levels in the upper range of normal, not even clinically elevated, but just in the higher range, experienced significantly greater cartilage loss over time compared to those with lower uric acid levels. The uric acid was forming microscopic crystals within the joint space that acted like tiny shards of glass grinding against the cartilage surface with every step. Imagine your synovial fluid, that beautiful slippery lubricant inside your knee, being contaminated with invisible grains of sand. Every time you bend your knee, those grains scrape across the cartilage surface, creating micro damage that triggers an inflammatory response. Your body sends repair cells, but the uric acid crystals keep coming because every morning you pour yourself another glass of orange juice. The repair process cannot keep up with the damage. The cartilage thins, the joint space narrows, the pain increases, and eventually you are sitting in my office looking at an X-ray that shows bone grinding against bone. If you love the taste of citrus in the morning, squeeze half of a fresh lemon into a glass of water. You get vitamin C without the fructose bomb, or eat a whole orange with all of its fiber intact. The fiber dramatically slows the absorption of fructose and prevents that uric acid spike. The whole fruit protects you. The processed juice destroys you. Same orange, completely different outcome. Now, I also want to mention that many of my patients who have given up orange juice have switched to low-fat flavored yogurt, thinking it is a healthier alternative. And I have to be honest with you, in many cases, it is just as bad. Most commercial low-fat flavored yogurts are loaded with added sugar, sometimes as much as 19 to 22 grams per serving. They spike your blood glucose, they drive glycation, they generate the same AGEs that attack your cartilage. The low-fat label tricks your brain into thinking it is virtuous, but your joints cannot read labels. They only respond to what arrives in your bloodstream. If you want yogurt, make it plain, full-fat Greek yogurt. It has twice the protein, a fraction of the sugar, and the healthy fats actually help your body absorb the fat-soluble vitamins that support joint repair. Add your own berries for flavor. That simple switch could reduce your daily added sugar intake by 15 to 20 grams and meaningfully lower the inflammatory load on your joints. So let me put this all together and give you what I call the Joint Protection Morning Protocol. This is what I recommend to my own patients and what I follow myself. Start your morning with a glass of water with half a fresh lemon squeezed into it. Then prepare plain steel-cut oats or whole rolled oats topped with a handful of blueberries, a tablespoon of ground flaxseed, and a small handful of walnuts. Alongside that, have 2 eggs cooked in real grass-fed butter or a serving of plain full-fat Greek yogurt with fresh berries. This breakfast gives you the protein your cartilage needs to rebuild, the omega-3 fatty acids that calm inflammation, the antioxidants that neutralize free radical damage in your joint tissue, and the healthy fats that support nutrient absorption. And it gives you all of this without a single gram of added sugar, without excess omega-6, and without a fructose surge that floods your joints with uric acid crystals. This is not a complicated diet plan. This is not expensive. This is not difficult. It is a simple swap that takes the same amount of time as what you were doing before. But the biochemical difference inside your knee joints is profound. I want to be very direct with you for a moment. I am an orthopedic surgeon. I make my living replacing joints that have been destroyed beyond repair. Every knee replacement I perform pays my mortgage. I have absolutely zero financial incentive to tell you how to avoid my operating table. But I became a doctor to help people, and what I have watched happen to patient after patient over the years has compelled me to speak up. The pattern is always the same. The cartilage thins, the pain increases, the activity decreases, the muscles weaken, the balance deteriorates, then comes the fall, then comes the walker. Then comes the conversation with adult children about whether mom or dad can still live alone. I have watched that conversation happen hundreds of times, and it never gets easier. The look on someone's face when they realize they may have to leave the home where they raised their family, the kitchen where they cooked Thanksgiving dinner for 30 years, the garden they planted with their own hands. That look haunts me. And the most heartbreaking part is that so much of it is preventable. Not all of it. I am not naive. Genetics play a role, previous injuries play a role, but the inflammatory environment inside your joints, the chemical soup that either protects your cartilage or dissolves it, that is largely within your control. And it starts with what you put on your plate at 7 o'clock in the morning. Your cartilage is not dead tissue waiting to crumble. It is alive, it is responsive. Research has demonstrated that when you remove the inflammatory triggers and provide the right nutritional building blocks, cartilage cells can increase their production of new collagen and proteoglycans, the molecules that give cartilage its shock-absorbing properties. You can actually shift the balance back toward repair. Not overnight, not in a week, but over months of consistent choices, your joints can become measurably healthier. I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine yourself 18 months from now. You have made these changes. Your morning routine takes the same amount of time, but your breakfast is now working for your joints instead of against them. You wake up and your knees feel different. Not perfect, maybe not the way they felt at 40, but genuinely better. The stiffness that used to take 20 minutes to work through in the morning now fades in 5. You walk to the mailbox without thinking about it. You get down on the floor to play with your grandchild, and you get back up without grabbing the couch for support. You carry your own groceries. You climb your own stairs. You sleep in your own bed in your own home. That is what this is about. This is not about nutrition labels and biochemistry. Those are just the tools. This is about your life, your independence, your dignity, your right to live on your own terms for as many years as you are given. So here is what I want you to do right now. Go into your kitchen, open your pantry, Look at those packets of instant flavored oatmeal. Look at that tub of plant sterile margarine in your refrigerator. Look at that carton of orange juice on the shelf. And I want you to make a decision. Then come back here and leave me a comment telling me which of these three foods you are removing from your kitchen today. Tell me which one surprised you the most. Tell me how long you have been eating it thinking it was helping you. I read every single comment and I will be right there to answer your questions and cheer you on. Your joints are listening to every choice you make. Starting tomorrow morning, make sure they hear something that heals instead of something that destroys. Your knees carried you through your entire life. Now it is time to carry them.